What is up? This is Alex from Double Move Sports. I'm back with one final mock draft before round one kicks off on Thursday. I'm just going to go through every single pick of the first round, give a quick breakdown with the selection. I thought we were done with some of the draft content until we saw these landing spots, but I just couldn't sit here with all this hype. 2 days to go at the time of this recording, and I just couldn't sit here and let it all pass by. I had to talk landing spots, mock draft one final time. But before I get into it, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, check out the Discord link in the description below. That is where Steph and I are hanging out. We're going to be hanging out in there during the NFL draft, doing some of our live reactions, just talking fantasy football, talking about the NFL, talking about dynasty leagues, rating trades, doing all sorts of stuff. The community's been super fun so far. Check it out if you want to hang out with Steph and I and a lot of the other people in our community. If you're already in there, you know who you are. Keep the chat going. It's been a ton of fun. But let's go ahead and jump into round one of this NFL draft. First on the clock is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not going to spend too much time with this pick. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence at the top. Same goes for number two. And this mock is going to be what I think is going to happen, almost what I'm projecting to happen. Not what I would do if I was the GM, because at two here, I would pick Justin Fields, but I really do think it's going to be Zach Wilson unless it's one of the biggest smoke screens of all time. So we're going to lock in Wilson at 2. And at 3 for the San Francisco 49ers, it's where it gets interesting because this could be Fields, this could be Mac Jones, this could be Trey Lance. It's going to be a quarterback. But I actually think that the San Francisco 49ers are going to take Mac Jones out of Alabama. Say what you want about him as a player, but I think he has just as good a shot to succeed as a Trey Lance, as a Justin Fields. I think the upside is much higher for those other two guys, especially for Fields. But I think the pick here at 3 is going to be Mac Jones to San Francisco. And that brings us to 4 to the Atlanta Falcons. Man, they could go any type of way. There's rumors about them trading Julio Jones. Maybe if they do go Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. There's rumors about them taking the heir to Matt Ryan. But with Matt Ryan's contract, it's going to be a couple years until they can get out of it. They could go defense as well. If that's the case, I think they would trade back. So with the Falcons here at number 4, I'm going to have them locking in Kyle Pitts, tight end out of Florida, give them another playmaker in this offense, give them help in the red zone. There's a reason Younghoe Koo led the NFL in field goals last season, and it's because the Falcons couldn't finish drives. So you get Kyle Pitts, you get that premier red zone threat to help you finish drives moving forward. Now, the Bengals at number 5. The big debate here is Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase. Please, Cincinnati, don't blow this. Take Penei Sewell, protect Joe Burrow, give your offensive line some help, and go get another playmaker for Burrow in round 2. There are so many receivers in this class. You can get a Rondale Moore, like Steph on our channel has been saying, to go along with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and play that slot role, that change of pace role. You can do so much at the wide receiver spot. Take the guy in Penei Sewell to protect your young franchise quarterback. Now at 6, we have the Miami Dolphins. And I do think, this is tough. I think they would go Sewell if he were on the board here. I still think there's a chance they go offensive line. I think there is a chance they could take Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern with this pick. But I do think they're going to go receiver. They brought in Will Fuller. They have Devontae Parker. So I think they're going to go receiver in round 1. I just don't know that it's going to be at the 6 overall pick. I think it could be later on with the second selection they have in round 1. I believe it's 18. They could do it in round 2. I do think they're going to do it in round 1, but if they have good options at offensive line on the board here, especially if Sewell is here, it's a smash pick. But if a guy like Rashawn Slater is still here for the Dolphins, I think that's the way they're going to go. So Rashawn Slater is actually going to be the pick at 6 overall. That brings us to Detroit, which if the draft board falls this way, I think it's best case scenario for the Lions. They get their alpha wide receiver 1 in Jamar Chase because the only guys they got right now are Brashad Perriman, Tyrell Williams, and Quintez Cephas. So Chase is the pick for Detroit. And now we're at Carolina at 8. And this is where it gets interesting because if these quarterbacks start to free fall like this, does Carolina go ahead and lock up a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance? And I think they do. I think if Justin Fields is on the board at 8 for Carolina, even though they just went out and traded for Sam Darnold, they will still hedge that and take Justin Fields at 8 overall. So that's going to be the pick for the Panthers. And then at 9, it's going to be a similar situation. If Trey Lance starts to free fall and Denver's on the clock with the 9th overall pick, Yes, they have Drew Lock, but I think they can't pass the potential upside of Trey Lance. So Trey Lance is going to go to Denver at 9, and now we're at 10 with the Dallas Cowboys. There's a lot of mocks that have Kyle Pitts going to Dallas. That would be a ton of fun if he fell to this spot. But I think they are going to go with kind of the chalk pick on defense. I've seen them taking Patrick Surtain just about everywhere. It makes too much sense. Now, Jerry Jones could always throw us a curveball and go offense, but I think it does make sense for the Cowboys to go with Surtain here at 10. And now we're on the clock with the New York Giants. There's rumors about them wanting another wide receiver. I don't think that makes a ton of sense for them considering they brought in Kenny Golladay. They still have Shepard and Slayton. They brought in John Ross. So I would love to see with the Giants pick here at 11, I would love to see them go offensive line or defense. In this case, Micah Parsons, who in my mind is the best defender in this draft. He is still on the board. Christian Darrisaw, tackle out of Virginia Tech, is on the board as well. So with this pick at 11, I'm actually going to go ahead and lock in. I'm going to lock in Christian Darrisaw. They're really trying to build out this offensive line, give Daniel Jones the best shot to succeed possible. So Darrisaw is going to be the pick from Virginia Tech. They could go Elijah Vera Tucker here as well. There's a lot of good tackles in this draft, even later on in the first round. Walker Little here, Tevin Jenkins, tons of options. But with this pick, I do think they take best tackle available in Darrisaw. Now at the Philadelphia Eagles at 12, they need playmakers for Jalen Hurts. I still think Jalen Reagor has a shot to be a good receiver. Battled a thumb injury last season, was a rookie. So this year he could take a step forward, but give yourself Devontae Smith to go along with Reagor. Give, a route runner, a guy who can get open, and Smith out there on the field with Reagor stretching the defense deep. Give Jalen Hurts a chance to succeed. Devontae Smith is the pick at 12, which brings us to 13. And I'm going to go a little bit rogue here. I think it makes sense for the Chargers to bring in offensive line. But they did already bring in Matt Filer in free agency, Corey Linsley in free agency, 2 guys to help develop that group. I think there's still a lot of offensive line they could snag in round 2. So I'm going to go a little off the wall here and lock in Jalen Waddle for the LA Chargers. Reason being, Jalen Guyton was fine last season. Some of those guys Herbert was throwing to were fine, but you have Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams. Give yourself a true field stretcher in Jalen Waddle. Mike Williams' contract doesn't really have any commitment, so they could move on from him if they wanted to. And I think Jalen Waddle as an electric playmaker in this offense, no pun intended with the Chargers, would be so much fun. So this one, I don't know how likely it is. There hasn't been a lot of buzz around the Chargers taking a wide receiver, but I think Waddle could make a lot of sense for this team. So if those tackles are off the board, Darrisaw, Rashawn Slater, and Penei Sewell, I could easily see the Chargers going Waddle here, which would be one of the most fun picks of the draft. And that brings us to the Minnesota Vikings at 14. They need offensive line help as well, but I think they can get it later on. They also need some pass rush. Micah Parsons is still on the board here at linebacker, but he's not really that pass rush specialist. I know we haven't taken one yet. Gregory Rousseau is available, Kwity Paye, Jason Oweh. So we'll go down the board here and find a pass rusher for the Minnesota Vikings. I think most likely it would be Kwity Paye or Jason Oweh. We're going to go ahead and lock in Kwity Paye here for the Vikings, which brings us to the Pats at the 15th overall pick. And their quarterbacks are off the board for New England. There's rumors they could be interested in J.C. Horn on defense at cornerback. At wide receiver, those top 3 guys are gone. They could go Bateman here. They could go with a Terrace Marshall or a Rondale Moore as well. But again, this draft is so deep at wide receiver, I think they can wait. But I do think they're going to lock up defense if the quarterbacks and those premier wide receivers are gone. So we're going to have them locking in J.C. Horn, cornerback from South Carolina. And at 16, we have the Arizona Cardinals, rumored to be interested in some wide receivers, but if this is how the board shakes out, I don't think they will go there. But there's some fun players here. Greg Newsome could replace Patrick Peterson on that defense. Micah Parsons continues to fall down this board. Someone's going to really get a steal in him, but I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to go ahead and lock up a cornerback here to replace Patrick Peterson if the board falls this way. So Greg Newsome from Northwestern is the pick. Now the Raiders at 17 lost a ton of offensive line this offseason, traded Trent Brown, traded Gabe Jackson, traded Rodney Hudson. So I do think they go O-line here. Elijah Vera Tucker is a perfect pick for this Raiders team. He's very flexible on the O-line. He can play guard or tackle really wherever they need him. So Elijah Vera Tucker from USC would be an absolute blessing for the Raiders in round 1. They always seem to go rogue, so who knows what's going to happen. But I love that pick for Vegas. And now we're back with the Dolphins at 18. Earlier on, I said I wouldn't be surprised to see them go wide receiver here. Elijah Moore is interesting. I know Rashad Bateman's on the board as well. Rondale Moore is still on the board, Terrace Marshall. But based on the value in this draft, Micah Parsons has fallen to the 18th overall pick. The Dolphins also have good draft capital in round 2. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go wide receiver there. And another thing to keep in mind for Miami is Najee Harris from Alabama. In my opinion, the best running back in this draft. All they have there is Myles Gaskin right now. I think they could maybe get Najee in round 2. But we're going to go ahead and lock in Micah Parsons here, linebacker from Penn State. It's just a value on the defensive side of the ball for Miami. Gives them a young, versatile playmaker at linebacker. Already a very strong position for Miami, but if you can get a really, really solid defensive piece that honestly could have been a top 10, top 12 talent in this draft at 18, you just have to take best available, especially for the Dolphins. And you really have young pieces everywhere and no extreme glaring positions of need. So Parsons is the pick here for the Dolphins. And now we're to Washington with the 19th overall pick. I know there's rumors of quarterback here, maybe a Kellen Mond slides up into round 1 or a Davis Mills or something crazy like that. But given the scenario, I don't think that's going to happen. They do still need weapons on offense. I think Rashad Bateman could make a ton of sense for Washington. They brought in Curtis Samuel to be that slot playmaker type of guy. They have Terry McLaurin on the outside already. Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. I think it could make a ton of sense for the Washington football team to lock up a Rashad Bateman, a guy who's often comped to a Stephon Diggs, someone who is a different type of playmaker as a Terry McLaurin, a route runner, a guy who's a specialist at getting open. And with Curtis Samuel there to do that, Swiss Army knife type of role, that do-it-all wide receiver, I think Bateman could come in and make this one of the best young receiving corps in the NFL. Whoever that quarterback of the future ends up being for Washington will be set up for success. So now we're on the clock with the Chicago Bears. Some of those quarterbacks could be tempting for them here at pick 20, but I don't think they take the bait. I think they do lock up one of their other positions of need, which are the O-line. They have some aging assets on the offensive line that are going to be probably declining in play. I don't want to assume that just because of age, but their contracts are getting up there as well. So I could easily see them wanting to lock up some offensive line here in round 1. Receiver could make sense as well. I would love to see them go Rashad Bateman. Terrace Marshall, I think, makes more sense for them than Elijah Moore does here. So this pick is really down between a Walker Little, who's an offensive tackle, a Terrace Marshall, or a Tevin Jenkins. And I'm actually going to lock up Terrace Marshall Jr. for the Bears. Allen Robinson's playing on the franchise tag. They could need a young receiver of the future. Terrace Marshall fits that bill. Steph on our channel has famously called him Justin Jefferson 2.0. Not that he is going to be as good or better than Justin Jefferson, but he's kind of that do-it-all receiver that can make a splash as a rookie. So Terrace Marshall is the pick for Chicago. Now we're on the clock with my Indianapolis Colts, and I would love them to just go offensive tackle here, keep it simple, replace Anthony Costanzo on that offensive line. You have good weapons in the offense as is. Maybe pick up a tight end or a receiver later on. But just get that offensive line shirt up, make sure it continues to be one of the top groups in the league. And if the draft board falls this way, Tevin Jenkins is a tackle I like a lot who could slide right in. So that's an easy pick for the Colts. And now we're to the Tennessee Titans, who have some holes everywhere. They definitely need a wide receiver. I think Rondale Moore would be an incredibly fun pick for this Tennessee Titans team. There is a lot of depth in this class. I've said it time and time again, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these teams wait on wide receiver unless we start to see a huge run like we've kind of seen here in this mock draft for round 1. But we're actually going to go Rondale Moore for Tennessee. They lost Corey Davis. They lost Jonnu Smith. They're going to need some playmakers alongside of A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry in this offense, so Rondale Moore is a perfect fit for Tennessee. Now we're back on the clock with the Jets. We went with Zach Wilson early. We're going to go with some defense here. There's a lot of good defenders on the board. Trevin Moehrig, safety out of TCU. Jason Away, in my opinion, a top 3 pass rusher in this draft. I think he would be the second off the board here. Caleb Farley, a cornerback who had a back procedure who started to free fall down some boards. Could be a riskier pick, but could pay off at the cornerback spot. But we're actually going to go ahead and lock in a pass rusher for the Jets. Jason Away out of Penn State. Bringing us to the Steelers at pick 24. Oh, this is tough. They could go quarterback. They could go offensive line. They're set at receiver. Their defense is fantastic. But with the Steelers, I'm going to go with the running back here. I'm going to see if I can scroll down our draft board and find this guy. It's going to be Najee Harris. They have a need at the position. They love using a workhorse back. They've done it time and time again, whether it's, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, D'Angelo Williams back in the day. So we're going to lock in Najee Harris. It's going to take me a second to find him here on our board. Here he is from Alabama. In my opinion, the best running back in this draft. Could be a good fit for Pittsburgh if they really want to make a push for the Super Bowl this season. And now we're back at 25 with the Jacksonville Jaguars locked up T-Law early in this draft at 1 overall. They could use offensive line help. They could use defensive help. They could use just about everything on the defensive side of the ball. So we're going to go ahead and lock in Trevon Moehrig here, a good value that's fallen to them, a really, really good safety out of TCU. They need defensive backs in Jacksonville. I think Christian Barmore is probably in consideration here as well. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame at linebacker, but we're going to go with Moehrig here. It's really a position of need for Jacksonville and lock up some defense to go along with the offense they got in Trevor Lawrence. Back on the clock with the Cleveland Browns, and they've made a splash picking up Jadeveon Clowney to go alongside of Myles Garrett. So they could use interior D-line here. It is a position of need. They're really focusing on that front four in Cleveland. So I think Christian Barmore here out of Alabama, interior defensive lineman, is just a great fit and a great value for the 26th overall pick in the first round. I think Cleveland is going to be very, very thrilled if he gets to them at that pick. And now we're on the clock with the Baltimore Ravens at number 27. And they have 2 first-round picks after trading Orlando Brown to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they're going to go offensive tackle with one of these picks. And I think they're going to go wide receiver with the other. So as far as their tackle goes, I think Walker Little is a guy that could draft, step in, help replace Orlando Brown on the offensive line. And we'll get to receiver for the Baltimore Ravens at pick 31. And now we're on the clock with the New Orleans Saints. They really need a wide receiver too behind Michael Thomas to help out Jameis or Taysom Hill at the quarterback spot. But Traquan Smith is still there. I think they're going to roll the dice and maybe try to pick up a receiver later. I really don't think they're going to take one in round 1, although I would love to see them do it. They also need a lot of help on defense. Caleb Farley and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah stand out to me here. I also really like Zaven Collins out of Tulsa at the linebacker spot. But we're going to go ahead and lock in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah for New Orleans. They need some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And that is going to be our selection at 28. Now at 29, it's the Green Bay Packers, and most people are going to have them going wide receiver in round 1. Although I really don't think that's likely. I think, if anything, why would they need to draft another wide receiver when Aaron Rodgers was the MVP of the league in 2020 with Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Robert Tonyan? They bring back Aaron Jones. They lose Corey Linsley at center. They have a defense that was the problem last season, not the offense. So why would they address the offense in round 1 when the defense was the unit needing improvement to go further into the playoffs? So I actually think they're going to go defense with this pick. There's a lot of guys I like. I like Zaven Collins, like I mentioned, out of Tulsa. Some of the cornerbacks are interesting here. Caleb Farley or Asante Samuel Jr. I'd be shocked to see them fall to round 2, but yet here we are at the end of round 1. But I'm actually going to lock in Zaven Collins for the Packers. He's a linebacker who can stop the run. He can play the pass. He's kind of a do-it-all type of player. This dude's a unit as well, and I think that would give the Packers defense a big lift, especially stopping the run. So Zaven Collins is the pick there. Now we're on the clock with Buffalo. I would be surprised to see Caleb Farley fall out of the first round. This would be a value for Buffalo at 30, getting who could be a top 10, top 15 talent in this draft at 30 just because of some injury concerns. So Farley is going to be the pick for the Bills. Now we're back on the clock with Baltimore. They have Hollywood Brown, they have Sammy Watkins, they have Mark Andrews at tight end. I think Elijah Moore in a slot role could be interesting for this team. No, he's not the run blocker that you want if you're running the read option with Lamar Jackson, but we saw the Ravens be really successful with those multi-tight end sets. Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, Nick Boyle back in the day, and they really lost that functionality of their offense last season after trading Hayden Hurst. Elijah Moore as a crafty slot receiver who can do it after the catch, who can get open across the middle, those short underneath routes for Lamar Jackson rather than having him throw to the outsides, could really fit what they're trying to do in Baltimore. So I would actually like to see Elijah Moore go to the Ravens for their team, not necessarily for Elijah Moore and his long-term, fantasy football or dynasty fantasy football value or anything like that. But for the Ravens, I think that could be a really good pick. And now we're at the 32 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the team without a position of need, They brought back all their starters from their Super Bowl team. So they can straight up go best available, or they can start thinking about a quarterback of the future. And there's some good players on the board here. Asante Samuel Jr., Jalen Phillips, Azeez Ojulari. We'll scroll down the board here. Kadarius Toney's available. A lot of people have him going in round 1. He's a guy that's been associated with the Ravens as well. And this is a tough pick for Tampa. I think they could go ahead and try to draft a developmental quarterback of the future to learn and develop behind Tom Brady. Kyle Trask is here. Davis Mills is available. Kellen Mond. But I'm actually just going to roll the dice here. Davis Mills, I don't know how much I believe in the talent. Small sample size at Stanford. His tape was just okay. He's battled some injuries, but he's got that prototypical NFL build. I could see Tampa going ahead and drafting him as a project behind Tom Brady, letting him sit for a couple of years and seeing what they have. So hot take here to end round 1. But in my bold predictions video for the draft, I did say 6 quarterbacks would go in round 1. So here it is, Davis Mills at 32 overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's going to round up this round 1 mock draft. Super, super excited for the NFL draft. That starts Thursday with round 1 and then rounds 2 and 3 on Friday. Again, join that Discord link in the description below. If you just want to talk about some of these picks, if you want to talk projections, if you want to get all the breakdowns, get your trades and your dynasty and fantasy leagues rated, basically talk anything NFL, join that Discord. It's been a ton of fun. Like and subscribe to this video if you enjoyed it. But again, this is Alex from Double Move Sports, and we'll see you next time.